If you have been voting for politicians who promise to give you goodies at someone else's expense, then you have no right to complain when they take your money and give it to someone else, including themselves.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're doing another deep dive today
Yeah.
into something pretty interesting.
Yeah, always exciting.
And this is one of those topics that I think we're gonna uncover some stuff that maybe we haven't thought about before, and
For sure.
and I'm really looking forward to this one. This is
Yeah.
about political promises
Yeah.
and their potential consequences.
Mhm.
We hear a lot
All
about
the time, yeah.
all kinds of promises during
Election season especially.
Yeah, for sure. But really, this applies to
Anytime.
anytime.
Somebody's asking you for your vote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to use a quote from the economist Thomas Sowell
Okay.
as our compass for this one.
Sounds good.
So,
Okay.
Are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So here's the quote. If you have been voting for politicians who promise to give you goodies at someone else's expense, then you have no right to complain when they take your money and give it to someone else, including themselves.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a powerful statement, isn't it?
Yeah, I really like it. It's
Yeah.
it's so simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very concise.
But it's like there's so much to unpack there.
Oh, absolutely. There's like a lot of layers to this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like an onion, political onion.
I love it. A political onion. So where do we even begin with this?
Well, I think maybe the best place to start is to just break it down.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Piece by piece, right? Like,
Right.
what is he even talking about when
Yeah.
he says goodies at someone else's expense?
Right.
That sounds kind of fun, right? Goodies.
Yeah.
But at someone else's expense, what does that even mean?
Yeah. And I think it's really getting at the core of a lot of political systems
Mhm.
and the way that policies are made and implemented and the way that,
The way that economies work, yeah.
economies work. Like, where's the money coming
Yeah,
from
exactly.
and where is it going and who's deciding that?
Exactly. And I think what he's really getting at here is this idea of redistribution of wealth,
Okay.
right? So, you have a system where, the government is collecting taxes
Yeah.
from everyone, theoretically.
Yeah.
And then those taxes are being used to fund programs, to provide benefits to certain groups of people, right? And these are often groups of people that are considered, in need or deserving of help.
So, what are some examples of these, goodies that he's talking about?
Yeah. So, I think a lot of, social welfare programs would fall under this category.
Okay.
So, things like, what's a good example? Like universal basic income,
Yeah.
right? Where everybody
Check.
gets a certain amount of money, regardless of whether or not they're working.
Right.
You have things like SNAC benefits, which helps to provide, food assistance for food, exactly, for low-income families.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of different.
These are all things that sound really great in theory, right? Like, who wouldn't want
free money. Yeah.
everybody to have food, everybody to, be able to support their families?
Yeah.
But it's like he's saying,
Well, it's not free, right?
right, it's not free.
It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's really trying to highlight here is that, if you are voting
For these
types of programs, and then, you're then surprised or upset when your taxes go up, it's
Yeah.
like, well, you could have voted for that, right? You asked for that.
It's kind of like that old saying, you made your bed, now you have to lie in it.
Exactly, yeah. You can't have your cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah.
You can't expect all these great benefits without there being some sort of cost associated with it. And so I think he's really emphasizing that element of personal responsibility,
Yeah.
right? Your choices have consequences.
Absolutely.
And you need to be aware of those consequences when you're making those choices.
And be willing to, live with them. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And not just get upset when things don't go exactly the way you plan.
Right. Exactly.
Even though you were the one who kind of set that plan in motion.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to remember, especially
in a democracy, right?
in a democracy where we have the power to choose
Yeah.
our leaders.
You have a say in how things are run. So, if you're not happy with the way things are going, it's like, well,
it's on you.
Maybe you need to rethink how you're voting.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you prioritizing? What are your values?
Yeah.
And are those values reflected in the people that you're electing?
Okay, so we've talked about the goodies
Right.
at someone else's expense.
Right.
But he also says, then you have no right to complain when they take your money and give it to someone else, including themselves. That last little bit, what do you think he's getting at there?
I think that's where he's like, bringing in a little bit of like cynicism or realism, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Right, because he's essentially saying like, these politicians,
Yeah.
they're not always altruistic.
Right.
They're not always acting in the best interests of the people.
Right.
They might be,
Lining their own pockets.
feathering their own nests, right? Using their power
Right.
to enrich themselves.
Right.
Or their cronies or their friends or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like a really important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's kind of a cynical view.
It is, yeah.
But, like, is he wrong?
I mean, we've seen it happen, right? Like time and time again.
For history.
Throughout history, yeah. So I think it's a healthy dose of skepticism to keep in mind, when you're evaluating these political promises.
Yeah, it makes you really think twice about, like,
Absolutely.
who you're voting for, right?
Yeah.
And, like, what are their motivations?
That's their agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, is he saying that all government programs are bad?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Like, is he saying we should just, like, get rid of all taxes and everyone fend for themselves?
Yeah, like, is this a completely, like...
libertarian manifesto?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
All right.
I think what he's really advocating for here is, like, just critical thinking.
Okay.
Right? Like, don't just blindly accept. Yeah, don't just buy into the rhetoric.
Right.
Right. Actually think about where this money's coming from.
Yeah.
Who is it going to? What are the potential long-term consequences?
Both positive and negative.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about understanding the trade-offs, right?
Absolutely. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. Like, we have to understand that there are always going to be...
costs and benefits.
Yeah. Costs and benefits to every decision. And it's our responsibility as citizens
to weigh those.
to really think about those and
Carefully.
carefully consider all the angles.
And not just listen to,
the loudest voice.
the sound bites.
Yeah, exactly. Or the most appealing, like,
The slogans.
yeah, slogans, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think this has been a really interesting dive.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So before we go, I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Does Sowell's quote change your view
Oh, that's a good one.
of any current political debates?
It's very timely, too.
Yeah. What goodies are being promised in those debates? And at whose expense? Think about it.
Lots to think about.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.